back to the late night review, and I've been waiting a long time to get to this film. Of course, I'm talking about Cyborg with Jean-Claude Van Damme. And I've got tremendous nostalgia for this movie. I think director Albert Pune, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, um, made a sci-fi classic here. And everyone who was involved with the directing, the writing, the screenplay really made a sci-fi classic. This movie, I think, is criminally underrated. I do think it's a classic. I think they did a great job. And I'm not exaggerating, this movie is a movie that I've always liked. And like I said, Albert Pune, he made a great movie here. And it's a sci-fi, not only a sci-fi classic, but it's one of my favorite movies of any genre of all time. This movie, Cyborg, along with Bloodsport, are my two favorite Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. But razor close to these are Double Impact. I really like Double Impact a lot. I mean, that's a movie that, and then when I was a kid, every new Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, that was my favorite Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. Ton of nostalgia for his movies. Every time a new Jean-Claude Van Damme movie came out, we had VCRs. As a kid, one of my hobbies was editing. Had two VCRs hooked up together, and I would record the preview of every new movie that he made. And I was so pumped. I edited it all together so I could just see preview after preview. That was many, many years ago. And I grew up editing as a hobby. And the technology has changed, but the principles are basically the same. I remember that. But yeah, when Kickboxer came out, that was my new favorite Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. When Death Warrant came out, I couldn't wait to see that. Although Death Warrant has never been one of my favorites just because of the slow pace in the middle. And there's a few other things that I think they could have done better, but it's still a fine film. But yeah, when Kickboxer first came out, that was my new favorite Van Damme movie. When Lionheart came out, that was my new favorite. And then Double Impact, that was my new favorite when it came out. Over the years, and thinking about it, I've always gone back to Cyborg and Bloodsport. Cyborg, sometimes I like it better than Bloodsport, actually, but Bloodsport has Bolo Young, and I love Bolo Young, and that he's a great villain. He does good in any role, I think, but he's a great villain. That's his bread and butter. And I remember watching him for the first time in Enter the Dragon, which is another just a classic film. And but this movie, Cyborg, I love the setting. I like the story a lot. You have this plague that's decimated the planet. Most people have died from it. Now they're searching for this cure, and the cyborg is played by Dale Hayden. I think she does a really great job. I think the action in here is really good. The fight scenes are really fun and enjoyable. The story plot is one where Jean-Claude Van Damme's character seeks justice. Gibson, his character of Gibson, goes and seeks justice because they killed his loved ones. Fender and his brutal gang killed his loved ones. And this movie is, like I said, to me, it's a sci-fi classic. You have Jean-Claude Van Damme in his prime doing his martial arts. You have really good action scenes, not just punching and kicking, but you have weapons. You have a variety of guns and blades in here, knives. And this came out in 1989. And I got so much nostalgia for this. There's a video game I wanted to show you. You probably know about it if you were into Sega Genesis video games back then. But Last Battle, I've kept this because I got so much nostalgia for it. And this came out in 1989, the same year as Cyborg. And I don't know about you, but I've always thought they're similar. Cyborg and Last Battle reminded me of each other. And I don't know if there's any kind of story behind that at all, but this video game, along with watching Cyborg, they went together really well, I'll put it that way. And there's a lot of similarities, I think. You know, I'm not saying anyone copied anyone's idea. I'm not saying that at all. I don't know anything about the background of Cyborg and Last Battle as pertaining to one another. There might not be a connection whatsoever. I'm not saying that at all. But to me as a kid, I highly enjoyed this video game and I highly enjoyed Cyborg. So these were two major parts of my life as a kid growing up. 1989, you know, Christmas morning, I opened this up, and also came with another game. I probably should have showed you guys. It's put away somewhere, but Altered Beast. You got Altered Beast as a free video game with your Sega Genesis system. So yeah, this was one of my favorite video games of all time. You had the map. You had to go to different locations and fight different guys. It was such a fun game. And watching Cyborg is just, you couldn't ask for more. But yeah, they reminded me of each other. Jean-Claude Van Damme, perfect, just perfect for this role. And just every time I saw his movies, I wanted to work out, exercise. He's been a major inspiration for myself and a lot of people. And I'm very thankful for this movie and that video game. So growing up with this movie and the video game, it was pretty fun. You know, those two things were two positive aspects for me. And I think a lot of people can relate, especially if you're a child of the 80s. You know, I was born in 77, got a lot of nostalgia for that time period. And into the 90s too, there's some great films and great music that came. Every decade has great films and music, but I think there was just so much in the 80s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I think it was a great time for music. And then 80s movies are my favorites. Some older movies I really like too. Like if you've watched my channel, I've talked about Kirk Douglas movies as well, Steve Reeves, and you know, there's so many. But anyway, Cyborg, like I said, this movie has great action. There's iconic scenes in here, like when Van Damme is hiding from the gang, trying to, you know, be stealth and pick off one at a time, and he's up there doing this. He's up on a platform in the dark. I think it's somewhere in the sewer, and they're looking for him, and he's doing this his classic splits, and he's got the knife, and it's kind of an iconic scene where that big guy is after him and he has his knife too. He's looking for him, and he doesn't know Van Damme's above until the last second, and then Van Damme comes down with a knife as he's doing the splits up there. I think that's rather iconic. I encourage people to watch this movie. And if you've seen it before, why not give it another chance if you haven't seen it for many years? I think it's a classic. And for those who haven't seen it, I think it's a hidden gem. You might not like it if you see it because it might not be your cup of tea. Everyone has their own taste. But I think it deserves to be rated as a sci-fi classic. I think it should have gotten that credit a long time ago. Hopefully, in the years to come, it will. And I think it's just one of those movies that never got the credit it deserves. And I would encourage you to take another look at it. And if you haven't seen it and you like movies like this, if you like futuristic movies and martial arts and action, I think you'll really, really like this. You're in for a major treat with this film. It's one of my favorites. It is my favorite Jean-Claude Van Damme movie along with Bloodsport. And then after that, it's close. I think I like Double Impact as third. Double Impact would be a third. When I was super young, I think it might have been Lionheart, but Double Impact has Bolo Young. And I'll tell you something, Double Impact reminded me of Double Dragon. That was a movie, I mean, that was a video game I loved growing up playing when I was a kid. Double Dragon the Revenge, Double Dragon the Sacred Stones. I mean, those were, and then Super Double Dragon for the Super Nintendo. Those were some of my very favorite video games. Double Impact kind of reminds me of those. It's got Bolo Young in Double Impact, so I think Double Impact is my favorite after Cyborg and Bloodsport nowadays. But you know, these are, to me, these are some great films. Check out Cyborg. I highly recommend it. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video. I'd like more people to watch Cyborg, and I hope it spreads more. And, you know, the idea of this movie being a sci-fi classic and giving it the credit it deserves, I hope more people watch this and it spreads, and give this classic, directed by Albert Pyun, and it just, Jean-Claude Van Damme in his prime. Check it out. And until next time, everybody, take care and have a good night.